495. I'm your host, Doug Sparks, editor-in-chief of Merrimack Valley Magazine. Lou, it's hot outside.
Is it?
It's really hot outside.
I've been here a long time, so
you walk around Newburyport, right?
Yes.
You like to take walks. Have you been going for walks early in the morning to avoid the heat? Do you not mind the heat? What are you doing?
I don't get the opportunity to do it early morning or late in the evening, so I have to deal with the heat. So
Yeah.
I know which way to walk and where the shadows are in the streets and which sidewalk to walk on, that kind of thing. So I'm kind of used to it.
You don't have to deal with the mosquitoes in Newburyport, do you?
Well, on Plum Island, I'm on Plum Island,
Okay.
and there was no breeze last night, so it was mosquitoes last
Okay.
night. They were a factor last night,
Yeah.
which isn't usual.
I think, maybe you need some limoncello because I believe the mosquitoes don't
God,
like lemons.
I'd
Humans love lemons.
I would love to have
mosquitoes. Our guest today, speaking of lemons, is Phil Mastroianni. He's one of the co-owners of Fabrizia Spirits in Salem, New Hampshire. Phil, can you hear me?
Thanks for having me, Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. So take me back to when you were 20 years old. You went on a trip when you were 20 years old to Italy. Is that correct?
That's correct. The trip that started my passion for limoncello, I was 27.
Oh, so that came later. Okay, so 20 was when you first went out and you met your relatives.
Correct.
And
exactly.
you were in, how do you pronounce it? Platania?
Platania.
Platania, which is in Calabria, which is like, if you think of Italy as like a boot, it's the toe of the boot. That's correct?
That's exactly right.
So
That's where we
southern, coastal.
That's not where I am. I'm in Salem, New Hampshire.
Right.
But that's where our family's from.
Right, exactly. So, all right, well, tell me about the trip when you were 27, where you got the idea for limoncello.
On that trip, on that trip, I was spending some extra time with my Oh, no, sorry. Take it back. I was thinking of a second trip, the next trip, the one closer to the limoncello. I was studying abroad in Florence, Italy. I went to Bentley University in Waltham, and my great aunt Rosina came over while I was there, and we took the train down to Calabria. And it was just such a life-changing experience because before that, I grew up in Newton, Massachusetts. That's where all of my grandparents had immigrated from Italy to Newton right off the boat. And I, playing baseball, growing up, American kid, and never really thinking about the fact that it was actually my own grandparents who I loved and spent so much time with, that they weren't from Newton. They were really from this place, and that they had all these other family members they left behind. And being I was 20. You're that time in your life when you're very impressionable, and I just absorbed that in, and it really changed my future life.
Sure. There's some writing you did on your website where you talk about, at this point, asking yourself this question: why did my grandfather leave? And it made you reflect and think, wow, he did this to make a better life, for generations to come, people like yourself, right? But at the same time, there's a little bit of a tension there because you're thinking, why did he leave this place to make a better life? And yet it sounds like you're in paradise. Like people are bringing out all this amazing food and you're kind of tapped into this wonderful culinary tradition. Is there some sort of tension there too, where you're like, why did he leave here? Why did he leave this amazing place?
One of my cousins, one of his first cousins, was still there. His name is Vincenzo. And he moved to America, stayed here for a few years and said the heck with it. And he went back. And he's sitting in all of these wine groves at his property. And his property literally overlooks the Mediterranean. It's like, 10 miles out. But on clear days, you can see it. And yes, I'm like, what was he thinking? This place is great. Why would he leave? But it also really underscored just how tough life must have been to leave such a beautiful place, to leave your family. And it actually really sort of almost bolded the fact of, wow, like really they made some big sacrifices to want to leave this place.
Sure. So here's a real basic question. What is limoncello?
Limoncello is it is a cordial. It is a liqueur, which means that it is a spirit that has a good content of sugar. That's sort of what any liqueur would be defined as, is something that is a neutral spirit, which would be like vodka. But then you add sugary content to it, and then you can flavor it. So this would be a fruit liqueur, would be your technical definition of limoncello. Limoncello, much more simply put, is a really tasty, zesty liqueur that is made from only the zest of lemons.
Okay. Do people have any misconceptions about limoncello, do you find?
Oh, for sure. And there's two categories, and they're polar opposites. Some people think of it as being way too sweet and sugary. And there are some that are like that. And that a lot of this is derived from the fact that there are some very bad limoncellos that are exported out of Italy that are not consumed in Italy. Think of like the really like bad olive oil that maybe leaves Italy that the Italians would never consume. The same thing happens with limoncello. So maybe there's some where they just add way too much flavor or they're way too sweet. So that's one camp that, oh, limoncello is too sugary, it's too sweet. Not if it's balanced right. And the other side of it is some of them are just also crafted improperly and they're way too harsh. And they're like, whoa, that stuff's rocket fuel. So it's like the opposite of it being too sweet. And you get a lot of that. And once again, if balanced correctly with the right amount of lemon zest, the right amount of sugar, a good base alcohol, and nothing else, it doesn't need to be too sweet, and it certainly doesn't need to be rocket fuel.
So where can people, now that people are listening to this, and of course they want to go get some, where can people buy your limoncello?
So we've been at it 11 years. Everything is done right here in Salem, New Hampshire. We're right over the border. We're right off of Exit 2. I live in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, so I drive through the Merrimack Valley every day on my way to and from work. And honestly, we have been very blessed in Massachusetts, in the greater Boston area. If you go to our website, fabriziaspirits.com, you can put your zip code in. And it's the easiest way because, Acton Wine and Spirits, great customer, Andover Wine. I mean, there's so many up in, I heard you mention Newburyport, Lou Leary's Fine Wine and Spirits. I don't actually want to miss anybody because we're very fortunate to have the support of the local community.
Great. Well, people can go to the website. So I want to talk to you about lemons.
Don't worry, everybody in the Merrimack Valley goes to New Hampshire anyway. So.
Well, and then if that's the case, then right here in Salem, New Hampshire, store 34 on Broadway.
Great.
Yep.
So I was reading this week, I was editing Dean Johnson's profile of you and your business that's going to appear in our September issue. And I guess you guys get into a long discussion about lemons, and he didn't know that you could talk so much about lemons. And you seem to be pretty passionate about this subject. What is it about lemons that where there's more than meets the eye?
So I'm actually not allowed to talk about lemons at home. My wife glazes over immediately. And when somebody ask me a question about lemons, I'll start and I'll say, do you really want to know everything? Because it's going to be a long story. And some people say, yeah, please tell me. And I can tell 5 minutes later they're sorry that they asked that. So,
we're food guys. We want to hear this, but bring it on.
A quick story. But long story short, the journey of our company, I mean, what we do, lemons is the principal ingredient. And we've really stayed focused over the years on really focusing on limoncello, and then with our cocktails, using those same lemons to make cocktails. As we progressed and as our business grew, it became obvious that this ingredient is not always the same. When I was a kid and I was just starting, and we were 27 when we started, a lemon was a lemon. And if you asked me, I'd say, a lemon's great, the fresher the better, but a lemon's a lemon. Very young, naive, ignorant comment, because it wasn't true. Over the years, we'd have problems with certain lemons. Maybe the wax of the lemon would make the limoncello come out a different color. In particular, some fruit from Chile and Mexico started using a petroleum-based wax because bees are hard to come by, and beeswax was hard to get. That wax, which you couldn't notice on the untrained eye, when aggregated in the alcohol, ended up making like this brown film. So, okay, we're only going to buy fruit from the USA. As we learn more about fruit in the USA, you have Arizona fruit, California fruit, but here's the thing. It all tastes the same, and they look great, but the flavor profile was sometimes different, and we just weren't that happy with it. Something was just off. Like, we were always trying to make our limoncello the best it could be, and it just was, as an Italian American, I knew we had like a 9 out of 10. I knew we had a good limoncello. But sometimes I would go and have a limoncello in Italy or a good imported one, because there's some, and I'm saying, you know what, ours is just not zesty enough. If I had to put my head on it, it just wasn't peppery and zesty enough. So I started researching lemons in Italy, and I started making some phone calls. And it was not easy to get people on the line, but I got a handful of people on the line, and I convinced my little brother Nick, who I co-own the business with, we should go to Italy and just see, maybe we can buy these. I did the math. We were buying enough lemons at the time by the pallet. And at this time, we were actually buying them directly from Sunkist, because my passion for getting the best fruit had led us to convincing Sunkist to sell directly from them in California to us, door to door, no middleman. But I did the math. I'm like, Nick, we're buying enough to bring in 2 full containers of lemons, and maybe the Sicilians or the Italians will hear us out. But I didn't know if we could do it. Sounded like a stretch. It's a lot of fruit. We went over. Actually, I'll stop rambling. See if you have any questions here, because the part of when we went to Italy is a whole nother part of the story.
I want to hear this. This is, I find this fascinating.
All right, so we identified. Thank you, because like I said, at home I'm not even allowed to talk about this.
Yeah.
So
you're safe here.
Yeah. Thank you. We identified 4 real lemon growing regions in Italy. For any of your listeners who are enthusiasts of Italy, yes, you can certainly grow a lemon up in the Cinque Terre region near the French Riviera. You can grow a lemon in Tuscany. I've even heard that some people grow them near Venice, which I don't fully believe. But in any case, with the right attention anywhere in Italy, you can grow a lemon. However, the main lemon growing agricultural regions really come down to the region of Amalfi and the region of Sorrento, which for all intensive purposes are the same place, because they're only 20 miles apart, but they have 2 different lemon growing associations, and they use a slightly different lemon. So literally within those 10 miles, the lemon changes just slightly. Then you have Calabria, which is where our family's from, as you pointed out at the beginning. There's a town called Rocca Imperiale, which has a EU designated status of having its own proprietary lemon. It's called I forget the name off the top of my head. And then you have Sicily, where 80% of the lemons in Italy are grown. It's flat, it's hot, and you have fewer days in Sicily where the temperature does a frost. And that is important, because even near Naples and in Calabria, temperatures just slightly colder by a few degrees. But if you have a frost on a lemon tree, you lose that tree for a few years. Wow. It doesn't just bounce right back. In Sicily, they get a few degrees on everyone, and only frost like every 15 or 20 years. Everywhere else, it happens once every 10. So that all being said, we went over there. We brought our father, because he's a landscaper, and we went in January, and we basically started going from one to the next.
I want to give Phil a standing ovation. That might be the best answer to a question I've ever seen on an interview.
It's great. Hey, if we put a blindfold on you and gave you lemons from these different regions, would you be able to tell which one came from Sicily, which one came from Calabria?
So only on the Sicilian. Okay. The Sicilian lemon would be the only one that was different. The Amalfi and Sorrento lemon is almost the same lemon.
Okay.
They're both huge. You've probably seen pictures. I'm sure some of your listeners have seen a picture of an Amalfi or Sorrento lemon. Those are the ones the size of like a grapefruit.
Yeah.
Have you seen one, Doug?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then in Calabria, they actually take the seeds from Sorrento and Amalfi, and they grow them there, which is a big scam. But this gets into like the whole lemon shadiness in Italians that goes on. In Sicily, it's a completely different variety. It's called the Feminello di Siracusa, is the type of lemon. It looks like a California.
Do you know
lemon.
what that means?
It means it's a female. Feminello means like, I think, a female version of. It's the Feminello di Scusato.
Woman of the something.
Feminello, now you know what? You caught me off guard. I'm getting a little dust.
We got to look it up. Maybe a listener can put it in the comments.
I actually don't know what the word Feminello means.
Okay.
I take that back. But it's a Feminello di Siracusa is the type of lemon. It's smaller. A tree can grow upwards of 1,500 pieces of fruit on one tree in a year. They're not large, but sometimes the smaller the fruit, it can condense the flavor. These lemons are very peppery. The other three are sweeter and more lemon floral. These have a zestiness to it, which ends up being very nice in the limoncello.
So the Sicilian ones are the ones you use?
Yes, we use the Sicilian ones.
Okay. So do you really have to kind of transform the business a little bit if you went from using Sunkist to importing from Italy, right?
Well, in particular, the question was going to be, will our customers like it? The verdict got answered very quickly on that. We brought it to the North End, to our best accounts. Some of the immigrated Italian, restaurateurs or managers said, this is way better. We always liked you, Phil. Now the limoncello, we like it even better. But really what it came down to, and this is a really good story, and this happened on the last day of this whirlwind journey. The Sicilians are who we took the most serious and vice versa. We really wanted to make it work with them, and they wanted to make it work with us. The father, and they have multi-generational families that run businesses there. There's so many small businesses in Italy. And the father was very adamant that we could not ship them after March, because they would be too mature. And if they're too mature, like if they're on that tree ripening, once we shipped them, it takes a month to get it here, they wouldn't last. The son, his name is Attilio, felt they could go longer, but the father, of course, his say was fine. So that would mean we would need to buy 2 containers, which is about 250,000 lemons, basically between the end of December and the very end of February. We only had 1,800 square feet right here in Salem. We had no place. That's like our whole year's worth at the time of lemons, and we're going to have to get them all in 2 months. So my brother, who's more of our production and logistics guy, just said, it can't happen. It's not going to happen. We can't do it. And it sort of felt like the whole trip was ending on this note of like a failure. Like we found the lemons, we want to do it, but we don't have the money to bring both containers over at the same time, peel them all, and then sit on them for the next 10 months as we use them. That's basically what it came down to. We didn't have the space, we didn't have the money. So him and my father, I love telling this story, went and took a nap. And while they were taking a nap, and we're in the town of Syracuse, okay, the town of Syracuse in New York is named after Syracuse, it's in Sicily. They went and took a nap, and I went to the cathedral in the town square. And I've never, up until that point, prayed for the success of our business, because there's people that are sick, there's people that are hungry. We got to be thankful for what we have. And, I never would want to pray to God to make Fabrizia be a bigger thing. But I had put my name on the line. I had told everybody we were going to Italy and coming back with these lemons. All of our distributors, all of our customers. And I didn't know how to break it to them that we weren't going to do it. I wanted so bad. So Nick and my father went to sleep. I went and said a prayer. And somehow Nick and I figured out how to do it. We did lose the first half of that first container. We had to throw half of them away. That's another story. But I'm telling too many stories here.
No, it's great.
That's why you're here.
Are you worried about the effect of the pandemic on the supply chain?
Well, no, I'm not. The Sicilians, I talked to them last week. They're doing fine. They closed Sicily up pretty quickly because of what happened in northern Italy, and they actually only have literally like a few hundred cases in Sicily. A lot of travel restrictions. They said that even the Germans and the English are not coming to Sicily this year. A lot of hotels in Sicily didn't even open. The bigger issue is actually the tariffs. And it relates to, and meanwhile, international commerce has continued to flow. We ended up, so that is not an issue. A bigger issue is actually the tariffs. There's a long-standing dispute between Boeing and Airbus. It's well documented, documentaries, movies, everything, and it finally spilled over last year. I'm sure, have you heard about how there's tariffs on wines and cheeses and all that stuff? Yeah. Have you heard about that at all?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So lemons got lumped into the exact same boat. And so there's a 25% tariff on our lemons. Trump was threatening to raise it to 100% throughout December and into early January. He made it clear via Twitter that on January 13th, he was going to decide if it went from 25 to 100 or not. And unfortunately for us, we had to cancel an order in December because if we had put that boat on the water, each shipment's about $25,000. So it was going to be $5,000 of tariff as it is that we didn't used to have to pay. But if it was raised to 100, which was being threatened to happen, that would have meant we would have to cough up another 25 grand. And that means the day it shows up, not the day it's shipped. It takes almost a month to get them here. So we had to wait until after January 13th where the threats didn't happen. They worked out some agreement. They stayed at 25%. We could only end up getting one on the water for this year, which was a real shame. However, we did find a guy who was taking risks, and he was sending in boatloads of lemons from Amalfi and Calabria, and we ended up buying a bunch through him, but it was on his risk. So the tariffs is actually the bigger problem, and it's not going to get any better because of what's going on with the pandemic, because Airbus and Boeing are, obviously looking for bailouts, and the previous bailouts had been the source of the issue.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the company. You consider it a family-owned company. You run it with your brother, Nick?
Correct.
And how many employees do you have? What's the size of your operation?
Right now we have about 20 employees. We operate seasonally 2 shifts because of our canned cocktails. They're called the Italian Margarita, the Italian Breeze, Italian Lemonade. And we take our limoncello, put them in them. They're popular. Our canning line can only run so fast. So those 20 employees are basically spread out over 2 shifts between 7 in the morning and 10 o'clock at night.
Do you feel there's a particular demographic that your drinks appeal to?
I really, I love bumping into people, a marketing person, and they'll say, can you tell me who is your target consumer? And I like to be casual. I like to not come off the wrong way. So I'll usually say, I got a pretty good idea. Then they'll try to press me. I'll say, yeah, we think it's a female between 30 and 50. And then they'll go, well, you really need to know. And here's the thing with that. If I'm pressed to answer the question, I can do it intelligently, and it is yes. Our target, there's 2 consumers, by the way. For our canned cocktails, they're a little more expensive than your malt beverages because there's better ingredients. There's real spirits, real vodka, real limoncello, tequila that we import from Tequila, Mexico, 3,000 miles away. So they cost a little more. So they're not for the 21-year-olds. They're for 25-year-olds and up, people that have jobs. 25 to 40, and yes, female for oriented if I had to press. The limoncello is also female, and it is more like 35 to 50. People that maybe have had an opportunity to travel to Italy or learn about Italy are in particular the ones that end up liking limoncello. But here's the exception to the rule, Doug. I know so many of them. My Uncle Joe, the guy that started it all, from what you read the thing, he loves limoncello. I'll meet some burly man at a liquor store, and he'll come up with tattoos and say, I love your limoncello, and then he hops on a motorcycle. So I really think that limoncello can be enjoyed by all. People just have to give it a try.
That's great. So tell me about this. I saw something about a beach house giveaway on your website.
Yeah, it's just a marketing gimmick. We like to have.
Well, you say that, but I know people listening are like, wait, beach house giveaway? Hold on. Stop.
Listen, it is catchy. And the winner this year, she just finished her vacation. Her first name was Teresa. And it was an idea that we came up with. Our whole theme of our company is live life zesty. We just thought of this slogan. Nike has just do it. Fabrizia has live life zesty. And it's basically because if you like limoncello and you like lemons, you probably have a zest for life. Having a zest for life is just one of these expressions that always stuck with me. And it is so Italian, by the way, because Italians have been through tough times and bad times, and they still get up and they have that zest. So in any case, we're trying to get more people to basically tag pictures of our canned cocktails with hashtag Live Life Zesty our slogan, and then we picked whatever photo it was the best. In the case of Teresa, she took cans last year to Yankee Stadium. Every time she went to the beach, she had a lot of fun with it. And so it's a 1-week rental on the Jersey Shore. We picked the Jersey Shore because it's well known. And we are a New England brand. We sell our products down to Georgia, so it's central. And it is a lot of fun. So I would say only about 50 people have entered so far. So you have a good chance of winning this year. The pandemic has certainly slowed down our job of getting the messaging out. We usually put a lot of signs up in liquor stores and stuff. So if you buy a Fabrizia canned cocktail, you then take a picture of it, hashtag Live Life Zesty. We'll notice it, and we announce the winner on Labor Day.
There you go. So I have one more thing I wanted to ask you about before I ask Lou if he has any questions. You were producing, or maybe are producing, hand sanitizer.
Yep.
And you pivoted during the pandemic. So how did that come about, and what's the status of that now?
So that came about because this late March, as you know, the world was falling apart. And while our canned cocktails have been popular the last couple of years, our distributors were just saying, like, let's hold off. That was very challenging for us to hear because we spend all winter typically peeling fruit, buying tequila, getting ready. So hearing these orders were going to get canceled right when it was like our prime time was very challenging as a small business owner who, we have these employees, we have them all with us all winter, and then it's time to finally get some revenue going and the orders are getting canceled. So that's going on in the background. And yeah, I won't say that I didn't have a Jack Daniels at 2:00 in the morning a few nights to calm my nerves. Then a notice came out from the federal government, the FDA, and the TTB that regulates distilleries, allowing us to temporarily make hand sanitizer, which I wasn't even aware there's a shortage of. I've been quoted as saying this, and it is true. I have never purchased a bottle in my life. I'm sure my wife has, and I've used hand sanitizer before. All of a sudden, we had the time because the other orders got canceled, and there was a need, so we just sort of jumped into action.
And are you still making hand sanitizer?
Yes, it has slowed down considerably, which is fine by me. Was not our passion. It's not why we wake up every day.
And this is lemons. It is lemon hand sanitizer, right?
It is lemon, and that made it fun for us. It's like 0.002% lemon scent, but it was enough to make it fun for us that we were able to drop a little bit in there.
Was it Sunkissed lemons?
What's that?
Was it Sunkissed lemons?
You know what? It was actually a lot of those lemons I told you about from the Italian guy that was taking the risk and it was even, unfortunately, some of the Sicilian lemons, because when this started, we had these lemons all because of this friggin' tariff. We ended up getting all of our lemons at once, basically, because when it wasn't going to be threatened to go to 100% tariff. And we would have ideally bought Sunkissed lemons, Lou, to make the sanitizer, because who really cared? People were just thankful to have hand sanitizer.
Yep.
But a lot of our Italian fruit went into that hand sanitizer for the first couple months. So, Doug, for the first 2 months, it was wacky. We even said no to 7-Eleven called us. Make us hand sanitizer. I said, no, we can't. We are supplying Health and Human. We were sending our truck to Regional Drive in Concord, New Hampshire, to the Army barracks, and was being unloaded by the military. And they were sending it to it was crazy. So 7-Eleven sent their buyer to us. He knocked on the front door. We started selling them just for New Hampshire, and then it was the most wild ride of our lives. And then it abruptly ended when all this stuff from Mexico and China showed up that everyone's recalling now.
Yeah.
We transitioned to cans, and we do keep the sanitizer going. As needed. It's not as crazy as it was.
And where can people get that?
Still at 7-Eleven. The 7-Eleven. So we sell it online at our website. 7-Eleven in Massachusetts. So yeah, Roach Brothers carries it. They carry it for some time here and there. And any of the Alltown gas station chains, those mobiles say Alltown, they carry it. So get it while it lasts, because we have no idea how long that will be going on.
Great.
So, and I said before, Doug, that's our first item. I can't wait to see discontinued, by the way. That means we're back to having good times and all around.
I appreciate your candor. Lou, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have several, but I'm going to start with this one because I'm given the answer on lemons. I figure this is a good one to start with. What do you know about blood oranges?
I do know less, Lou. Honest answer. What I also know is we would love to switch them to 100% Italian, but blood oranges need to be what's called cold treated. So to answer your question, the best blood oranges come from Sicily. They're called Tarocco blood oranges. But when they are suspect to the Mediterranean fruit fly. They're on the list along with like grapes and some other things. So if you want to get them, you have to cold treat them, which means they have to go for 10 days at 32 degrees or less. Lemons cannot survive that. As soon as they warm up, they're rubbery and they spoil within a day. So the lemons need to be shipped at 40 degrees above freezing, and so for whatever reason. So they can't go on the same container. And when you cold treat the blood oranges, it shrinks the fruit juice inside. It's almost like when someone, loses a ton of weight and they have that extra skin. It's the same thing. And then we can't peel it on our peeling machine. So right now, California blood oranges are our best bet, and it's typically what we use. So you won't see a made with 100% imported blood oranges on our label because it's not true. But they are good. They make a decent one in California. What's the next question? Give me a tougher one.
All right. Well, no, I haven't got the tough one's the last one. Hang on for that one. Tell us a little bit about your other product, the Italian margaritas, and differentiate it. I love the combination of tequila and Italian sensibility. I just think that's ripe with potential.
Well, and you know what? And it is a wacky drink. I tell people all the time. I was doing a tasting once at a store. I was in Virginia at a store in Virginia Beach. Some guy walked in. He goes, "I love margaritas. Let me try yours." And he tried. He goes, "This isn't a margarita." I go, "I know. It's the Italian margarita. It's not going to taste like your traditional one because it's lemon forward. It's a fun, refreshing drink." And basically, we were just throwing away all these lemons about 6 years ago. Everyone was saying, start a lemonade company. We were barely keeping the doors open with our limoncello company. I'd say, how am I going to go up against Snapple guys,
Yeah.
So we ended up, the light bulb went off because we started making this drink in our backyard. My little sister, Jenna, would end up making them all. We called them Jenna-ritas. It was our limoncello, lemonade, and tequila. Those are the only three ingredients. But guess what? We'd be hanging out. 2 bottles of limoncello would be gone. So a light bulb went off. Usually it takes a customer a whole year to drink a bottle of limoncello. So a light bulb went off. So we're throwing away all these lemons. Everyone says start a lemonade company. We can't do that. But we can make lemonade with them. And this drink might make it so people use more limoncello. So we ended up coming out with it. We didn't know it was going to happen. But like you said, Lou, it was quirky, but it worked. It tastes great. It's very refreshing. And it was the start of our line of canned cocktails.
All right. Forgive me if I'm wrapping around on this question, but a good interview technique is to ask the question a couple times. Make sure you get the right answer. Or make sure you get the full answer. You're obviously a very passionate guy. And I love that about you. It just comes out from you. How did the passion get focused on limoncello? I mean, how did you could have caught a fire and a passion for almost anything because you're that type of guy. How did it land there?
So I was an accountant. It really does go back to the beginning of this interview with this trip with my Aunt Rosina. It profoundly changed my life. I speak decent Italian now. Didn't speak any then. I got it, so this was not just about limoncello. It was about me really taking serious everything about Italy and my heritage. That's the backdrop of this. Meanwhile, running sideline was the fact I had become an accountant. I started working in corporate America, and, it was a job. And I'm sure a lot of people understand that, you know what I mean? And I was happy and I was making it work. But yeah, like I was always planning my next trip when I could go back to Italy, or the other hobbies. All these Italian hobbies were starting to take over, and people in the office were starting to be like, Phil talks more about his homemade wine than about, the client or whatever it was. Yeah. And so one night, and it's same story that's up on this website. Uncle Joe was over. I poured him some of our limoncello, which is one of many things we were making. And he said, "Phil, this is the best limoncello I've ever had. This is what you should be doing." I said, "Uncle Joe, that would never work. That's crazy." And I went downstairs to go to bed because I was sleeping in my parents' basement, like many other 25 or 26-year-olds. Yeah, I was 25 at the time. But the idea stuck with me, Lou, because, yes, I had a little bit of a business background. I couldn't get into making wine, even though I liked making homemade wine. That might be a stretch. That's hard to do. Definitely can't just get into making cheese. But wait a second. I'm making limoncello. The ones from Italy are terrible. Sorry. The ones from Italy are wonderful. Some of the ones that they export and we get here are terrible because they have fake colors and they're expensive. So I started adding it all up. And I'm like, wait a minute. Uncle Joe's right. We could make real limoncello without coloring. We could do it at a better price. And I saw an opportunity, and that's ultimately what happened. It was the passion for Italy, and then I saw a business opportunity, and I wasn't fully happy with my job, and I figured, why not? Now's the time. I had nothing to lose. I was single. I had no money to my name. I only had a little bit of debt. I think I had $3,000 in a 401k, and I was able to take cash advances. Yep. And I said, if I lose this $17,000, because that's what I put in to start the company, that would really stink. But I'm 26. I think I was 26 by the time I got to this point. I'll survive. I can just keep working at, the accounting firm. That was my mentality. And yeah, it was fun.
I may have the timing wrong, but and starting a business is one thing and distilling is another thing, but distributing alcohol is a whole different business altogether. And I'm guessing craft beers open the doors for small companies to get involved in this. And there are many craft spirits throughout the spirit spectrum. How did you find, it sounds like you were a little bit before that, though, and a little early. How difficult was it to get into the distribution business as a small company? In other words, you weren't making 20 spirits and all of a sudden you started making limoncello. You were just a guy making some limoncello and trying to distribute it.
Exactly. And unfortunately, when I did start, there was 150 distilleries in America. Now there's closer to 2,000.
Yeah.
I would say a few years in, there was still only like 250, 300. It really just sort of blossomed overnight. But what did not happen for distilleries, and it still has not happened, is the proliferation of consumers coming in demanding these products and buying a lot of them. Breweries like, Jack's Abbey in Boston, in Framingham, Lord Hobo in Woburn. So many great breweries right here in Boston that just blew up. Harpoon, Sam Adams, of course, we're national. You really haven't heard of too many distilleries that have done that. Because some of so we'll leave that there. And the other big difference on that, Lou, is Coors Light, Bud Light, they had all become generic. Yeah. And the craft brewers were able to elevate it. There's a big argument in the spirit space that, Johnny Walker, Kettle One, Grey Goose, a pretty good vodka. Those are good vodkas for the last two I mentioned. So it was a little bit of a harder, we had more, it was a tougher sell. That like, oh, we're going to sell you a better vodka than the Kettle One you're buying. But to your point is, battle scarred, Lou. I'm so battle scarred.
I can imagine.
Trying to have to build that distribution, walk in a store and sell a bottle of limoncello and get told no 9 times out of 10 on a given day, and then get up and do it again the next day. You have to want to make it happen. And that's what the case was for me. And I was patient. I had nothing going for me the first 2, 3, 4 years. I thought I did. I thought like things were happening. But things were happening at such a snail's pace. But I kept on looking at the good things that happened as positives, would be the other thing for it. Is honestly, so in the distributors, even today for craft spirits, it is so challenging. Yeah. For craft spirits brands to get distributors, especially outside of their home market.
Well, I hope people get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, and your passion is clear, and I'm glad you've been fighting this fight. So if people want to learn more, they can go to FabriziaSpirits.com. My guest today has been Phil Mastroianni from Fabrizia Spirits in Salem, New Hampshire. Phil, thank you so much for coming on the 495. I really appreciate it.
Doug and Lou, thank you so much for having me.
I'll see everybody next week.
Take care, guys.